Have you ever truly stopped to consider what it really means to grow up? I mean, it's easy to just think, okay, age, maybe getting a job, finally tackling that laundry pile without being told. But what if true maturity isn't just about, managing your finances or cleaning your house? What if it's about something far more fundamental, tied to our core values, how we interact with the world? And here's the kicker. What if this surprising answer comes from this incredibly methodical 18th century philosopher whose neighbors practically set their watches by his daily routine? This is fascinating. Let's unpack this for you.
Absolutely. Today, we're taking a deep dive into Chapter 6 of Mark Manson's Everything is Fucked. He calls it the formula of humanity, which is a brilliant concept. Our mission, really, is to understand Manson's insights on psychological maturity, how we actually develop, from being kids driven purely by pleasure and pain through that sort of transactional phase of adolescence, and finally into what he defines as true adulthood. And we'll connect this whole journey directly to Immanuel Kant's really profound universal moral principle. By the end of this, you'll not only have like a powerful shortcut to understanding human development, but also hopefully a transformative lens for navigating your relationships and approaching life with much greater intention.
When I first read about Kant, I was genuinely baffled. How could someone who lives such a seemingly, dull and rigid life have such a monumental impact? I mean, imagine a person so utterly predictable it bordered on performance art. For 40 years, Immanuel Kant woke up at precisely 5 o'clock. Every morning, he'd write for exactly 3 hours, lecture for exactly 4, then eat lunch at the very same restaurant. Every single day, for decades, his afternoon walk. Same park, same route, so punctual his neighbors in Königsberg literally used him to set their watches. He was human efficiency personified.
It's quite the image, isn't it? But here's what's truly remarkable. Despite this incredibly structured, almost monotonous existence, Kant became one of the most important thinkers in history, period. From his little single-room apartment, he did more to shape global thought than, many kings or generals ever did. Think about it. If you live in a democratic society that champions individual freedoms, you have Kant partially to thank for that. He was a pioneer arguing for inherent human dignity, individual rights. He even envisioned a global governing body, a kind of precursor to the UN. And his ideas on space and time, they actually helped inspire Einstein's theory of relativity. Plus, he was suggesting animal rights way back then.
And he truly revolutionized moral philosophy, right? Yeah. Overturning ideas that have been around since Aristotle. And what really stands out to me from the source material is this sense that he didn't give a fuck about external pressures. Kings tried to censor him, priests condemned him, academics were jealous. None of it seemed to slow him down. He just kept going.
Absolutely. That unwavering commitment is key. He was rigid, uncompromising, because he believed in a clear right and wrong that went beyond human emotions or, fleeting social trends. He famously confronted what Manson calls the uncomfortable truth with just pure logic and reason.
Yeah.
He wouldn't back down even if his logic led somewhere unpopular. His dedication to principle over comfort. That really set him apart, and it's kind of a living example of the maturity we're talking about today.
Okay, so we have Kant, this huge figure of unwavering principle, but what does this mean for us, like for our own journey to maturity, beyond just handling adult stuff?
Right.
What does truly growing up look like, psychologically speaking?
Right. That's where Manson's framework really clicks. To get Kant's big idea, we first need to understand how we psychologically develop our values. Let's start with childhood. Manson uses a great analogy. Imagine a 4-year-old touching a hot stove, immediate pain, and then stealing ice cream, pure bliss. A child at this stage learns what pleases and harms them through exploration. Their feeling brain, that instant emotional reaction system, is basically building an early value list. Super simple. Ice cream good, hot stoves bad. At this stage, a kid's identity is small, fragile, totally centered on immediate gratification. They are, as the book says, kind of like little tyrants who can't really feel empathy yet. All they know is they want that ice cream, and they want it now.
Yeah, and I guess that pure exploration can only last so long, right?
Yeah.
You can't just keep touching every hot stove you see.
Exactly. Eventually, this pure try-everything phase runs out of steam. Not because there's nothing left to explore, but because the world just gets way too complex. You literally can't touch and taste everything to learn its consequences. So we start developing if-then rules to get by. We pick up a lot of these from parents, teachers, if I steal dessert, mom gets angry. We start seeing that actions have consequences, and we have to negotiate our desires with others. This is adolescence.
Ah, and this is a key point for adolescence, isn't it? Nothing is really done for its own sake. It's all a calculated transaction, usually driven by fear of getting in trouble. Like you might call your mom not just because you want to chat, but to avoid getting yelled at later, or doing homework to not mess up your future, not because you're genuinely fascinated by algebra. It's an upgrade from the pure pleasure-seeking kid, for sure,
Yeah.
but still very transactional.
You've hit on something crucial there. The big weakness of this adolescent approach is that it's kind of self-defeating in the long run. You're never truly living your life. You're just sort of collecting the desires and rules of other people. Your identity stays other dependent. You're constantly trying on different social masks, different rules to get approval. If I wear this, will people think I'm cool? If I pretend I like this band, will I fit in? It's this endless negotiation for value from others.
Okay, so if being an adult isn't just about paying bills or cleaning the house,
Yeah.
what in it then? What does it really mean to become an adult in this deeper sense?
Adulthood, in Manson's view, is this profound realization. The most important things in life, like real love, deep friendship, genuine respect, you just cannot get them through bargaining. In fact, trying to bargain for them actually destroys them on the spot. Like if you have to convince someone to love you unconditionally, well, they don't, right? Adulthood is developing the ability to do what is right for the simple reason that it is right, full stop.
Wow, that's a huge shift. So an adolescent values honesty because it gets them good results, maybe. Yeah. But an adult values honesty just because it's honesty.
Precisely. An adolescent values honesty because it works, avoids punishment, builds trust, gets them things. But an adult values honesty for its own sake, even if telling the truth hurts sometimes. Because honesty itself is inherently good, it respects consciousness. Same with love. An adult loves freely without expecting a specific tit-for-tat return, because that's what makes love real, not a transaction. This really highlights that true maturity isn't about your age or even what you do. It's deeply about your intentions, your why. An adult doesn't steal because stealing is wrong fundamentally, not just because they might get caught.
That's a really powerful distinction. So if this kind of real adulthood is so obviously beneficial, why do so many people seem to get stuck? Stuck in either the childhood pleasure pain thing or the adolescent bargaining game.
Yeah, it often boils down to how we learn or maybe fail to learn about consequences and trust early on. For kids, consistent, predictable consequences, basically, good parenting are absolutely vital. If a child steals ice cream and always faces a reasonable consequence, they learn about trade-offs, about complexity. But if parents coddle them too much, shielding them from all negative outcomes, or, much worse, if they abuse them, the child can get stuck. Abused children, for example, often struggle to develop higher values because punishment feels random, arbitrary, not logical. This creates a deep lack of trust that the world makes sense, which unfortunately stunts growth.
That makes a lot of sense. And what about people stuck in that adolescent transactional stage?
Similar reasons, often rooted in trauma or neglect. Think about someone who is severely bullied. They might internalize this belief that affection or respect always has to be hard-won through manipulation or constant negotiation. These individuals can become incredibly good at playing the bargaining game because their experience has taught them that's just how the world works, that's how you survive.
And what's really sobering from the source material is how parents and teachers can accidentally keep this cycle going, right? Because they might be stuck in transactional values themselves. The book points out they too might bargain love for sex, loyalty for affection, respect for obedience, even bargaining with their own kids for good behavior or affection, thinking it's normal, it just passes down.
It's a really tough cycle to break, and the core difficulty in moving to true adulthood, it's that acting unconditionally takes immense courage and faith. It means being willing to let go of hoping for a specific outcome, to act just because it's the right thing to do. Your logical thinking brain might scream, this is stupid, act without a guarantee. And your emotional feeling brain will definitely fear the potential pain of, say, brutal honesty or real vulnerability. But the adult, the mature person, does it anyway.
Which brings us right back around to Kant. His relentless pursuit of truth led him to a principle that actually transcends hope and gives us a clear path to adult virtue. This is where it gets really good.
Okay, so Kant started with this really simple but incredibly powerful observation. In the entire universe, as far as we know, consciousness is unique. It's supremely valuable. It's the only thing capable of reason, of directing its own existence, of even conceiving of value itself. and generating complexity. We're the source of ingenuity, creativity, self-awareness. Therefore, Kant reasoned the most fundamental moral duty we have is the preservation and growth of consciousness, both in ourselves and in others. He boiled this down into his formula of humanity. Well, and here it is, one potent sentence. Act that you use humanity, whether in your own person or in the person of any other, always at the same time as an end, never merely as a means.
Okay, that's dense. But the means versus ends idea is crucial, right? Like, if I want a burrito, that's my end goal. Driving my car, buying gas, those are the means to get the burrito. They only matter if I want the burrito. But the Kantian twist comes with people. If I, say, make my partner happy only so I can get something in return, like sex later, then I'm treating them merely as a means to my own end. And that, Kant says, is inherently some shade of wrong. Wow, that reframes so many everyday things.
You've absolutely nailed it. Think about it. Lying is wrong because you're manipulating another person's conscious understanding of reality just to get what you want. You're using their mind as a tool. Cheating, same deal. You're violating trust, treating the other person as a means to your gratification. Violence obviously treats a person as an object to achieve some political or personal goal. Conversely, adult virtues like honesty, courage, humility, they are good in and of themselves, precisely because they're ways of relating that do not treat people merely as means. They respect the inherent worth of another consciousness.
And the real power here is that this principle does not rely on hope. It's not about dreaming of some perfect future or blaming the past. It's all about the choices you make right now, in this moment.
That's its profound strength. Kant saw that hoping for utopia often leads to trying to force your values onto others, trampling their autonomy. That's hope's dark side. Instead, he argued, the only logical way to really improve the world is to improve ourselves. By making that simple, moment-to-moment decision to treat ourselves and others as ends, never just as means, he saw this deep link between self-respect and respect for the world. So self-improvement isn't really about chasing happiness, it's about a cultivation of greater self-respect. Lying to yourself, harming yourself, that's just as unethical as doing it to others under this formula. And this creates a positive ripple effect. Your honesty and self-respect naturally influence your relationships, fostering growth all around you.
Okay, let's take this to the macro level then, which feels incredibly relevant right now. How does this understanding of maturity and Kant's formula help us understand what's going on in our society and politics?
It provides a really clear lens, actually. Modern democracy, for instance, was basically designed knowing people can be selfish and transactional. So it safeguards freedom of speech, right, to a fair trial. These are essentially implementations of the formula of humanity. They're there to ensure dignity and respect precisely because power attracts people who might act immaturely.
But we're seeing such a rise in political extremism lately, on all sides, it seems. How does Kant's formula and this maturity idea apply there?
Well, this framework gives us an impartial way to look at it. Extremists, whether you're talking far left or far right, often operate from a childish or adolescent place psychologically. They tend to refuse negotiation, refuse to even acknowledge the validity of values different from their own. And crucially, they treat other people as means to their ideological ends. So a right-wing extremist might shout freedom, but often means freedom from dealing with values they don't like, even if it means limiting others' freedom to achieve that. And similarly, a left-wing extremist might demand equality, but sometimes means eliminating all pain or discomfort, even if it requires causing pain to others seen as obstacles to that goal. This isn't really about left versus right politics in the end. It's fundamentally a clash between maturity and immaturity, between seeing people as ends in themselves or merely as means to an ideological goal. It's a crisis of character, a crisis of virtue, as Manson puts it, highlighting this failure to respect the consciousness of others.
Wow. So we've really traced this thread from Kant's incredibly disciplined life through these clear stages of human development, the pleasure-seeking child, the transactional teen, the principled adult, and it all leads to the, well, profound simplicity of Kant's formula of humanity, this single principle to guide how we should treat ourselves and each other.
Exactly. And maybe the most powerful takeaway for you listening right now is this. The path to changing the world isn't really through grand ideologies or hoping for some perfect future or waiting for external forces to fix things. It's about cultivating dignity and maturity within ourselves right now in this present moment. Because as Manson powerfully concludes, don't hope for a better life, simply be a better life. It's about choosing, here and now, to act unconditionally, to foster that inherent dignity and respect in yourself, and by doing so in every single interaction you have. What might that look like in your life, starting today?